Halo 3 is the best game that has ever been made and will ever be made, bar none. If you agree with that statement, congratulations. May you continue to tread the blessed path of the great journey. If you have a problem with what I just said, then you've clicked on the right video, because either you missed the boat on Halo, or you're just in denial about the finest work of unchained creativity, badassery, and even beauty ever put to a console. But do not worry, I shall aid you in seeking the holy light. From beginning to end, from the shallows to the depths, I will show you why Halo 3 is the best game of all time. Yeah, I know it's hype, but hang on for just a second, because in order for me to prove that Halo 3 is the best video game, we have to define what the best video game is. Now, I've created a checklist based on asking a few people some anecdotal answers, plus my own experience with a childhood that ranged from the late 90s to the early 2010s. So yeah, it's pretty comprehensive. First, as a video game, you've got some necessary aspects. It should be fun, it should be challenging, and it should be immersive. If it's a decent game, it should have replay value. Some define a great game as one with a great story. Others think it needs to have a thriving multiplayer community. It should be able to stand the test of time, and it should have something to offer to everyone who might want to play. I think we can agree that if a game can fulfill these requirements, it's got a pretty good chance of being the best. Sound good? Good. Now that we have some sort of basis to go off of, let's see how Halo 3 stacks up. We'll start from the beginning. Like any other work of art, Halo 3 requires some history and context in order to be fully appreciated. Announced at E3 in 2006, Halo 3 was immediately considered a highlight of the show. Bungie saved it until the end of the Microsoft press conference, and as the big exclusive game of the current console generation and the final chapter in the Halo trilogy, it was truly best for last. The first trailer came over a year before the game's release, which allowed plenty of time for fans to get hyped and for newcomers to get interested. This was only the beginning. Microsoft then proceeded to give $40 million to Halo 3's marketing team, and they didn't waste a cent of it. In order to keep the excitement from getting stale in the 16 months between announcement and release, they set up a 5-pronged plan that combined a traditional marketing campaign with aspects such as public beta testing, partner brand deals, the Believe campaign, and of course, a Halo augmented reality game. Halo ARGs are bread and butter for releases in this series, but Halo 3's Iris campaign was designed to draw casual fans deeper into Halo's lore, deeper than anyone thought it would go. The ARG consisted of cryptic posts on Bungie's chat boards that initially fooled some users into thinking the website was somehow hacked, but eventually led to secret puzzles and hidden clues as to what the new game would be about. The posts also yielded some deep lore that is still potentially paying off today with Halo Infinite. That's pretty wild for a secret minigame from 2007. An open beta is always a good idea for modern multiplayer games, and brand deals are fun, but the real meat of this hype stew was the video campaign. 3 teasers were spread out over a year, one of which only aired on TV once, so you had to sit and watch a show to wait for the premiere of the commercial to come on at the scheduled time, and they were worth the wait. We got Chief using a weird shield, we got new guns, we got a giant metal flower in the ground. Discovery also aired a short, sort of proof-of-concept Halo film called Landfall that was directed by Neil Blomkamp. The short revealed events on Earth that led up to the first mission in the game, but with these cool ODSTs who are driving around in a Warthog and then they're trying to meet up with these other guys, but then boom, they're attacked, but then they fight back, and then oh shit! It was used to promote Halo 3, of course, but it was also used to gauge interest around a live-action Halo movie that Neil had teamed up with Weta Workshop and Peter Jackson to make. When the plans for that fell through later, he used the leftover concepts to make District 9, so that's why the prawns were so tall. This massive marketing endeavor culminated in the final act, the Believe campaign. New Deal Studios and Stan Winston Studios collaborated to create a photorealistic 1/12 scale warehouse-sized model of a battle between humans and Covenant. It was explorable through an interactive website, used real actors to model unique faces, and had embedded video interviews with veterans of the Human Covenant War where they recounted their stories and memories of the events of Halo 3. These veterans told you how you saved humanity weeks before you got the game and actually saved humanity. They also kinda imply that you might have died? The unique mode of a model was chosen to act as a memorial to those who perished in the war, and to the Master Chief who saved us all. The Believe campaign really got the idea of Halo statues going in the community, because years later we would honor the Master Chief by erecting a statue of him in front of the White House. All of this buzz not only got fans more excited than they'd ever been for a video game, but it also won Halo 3's advertising team several marketing awards. The wild success of this campaign is widely credited as an indicator of gaming's rising popularity in the 2000s media landscape. Papa Microsoft couldn't be happier. September 25th, 2007. Halo 3's launch. A gaming holiday. The collective hype culminated in launch parties around the world leading up to the midnight release. Millions gathered to get a copy of the game. The final effort paid off. Halo 3 made over $170 million in its first 24 hours. To compare, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows only sold $166 million in the same time frame. The book, not the movie, they cheated. But David, you can't compare book sales to video games, there's a price difference. Okay, how about the significant dip in the film box office revenue that weekend, which studio executives actually singled out and blamed Halo 3 for? Still not enough for you? Fine, here's a direct comparison. In 2006, Gears of War was Xbox 360's highest selling game at 3 million copies. The next year, Halo 3 sold 8 million. Yeah. I can hear you asking, David, why were people so excited for Halo 3? Sounds like a lot of hoopla to make over a little video game, right? Wrong. On the surface, it might look just like another big man shoot aliens type of game, but it truly holds so much more. The series has history, both in-game and in real life. It contains an amazing universe for the player to explore and years of refined game design to match. The Halo franchise is an expansive, cumulative creation made by a few brilliant minds who truly cared about and believed in the masterpiece that they knew they were bringing into this world. David, what are you talking about? It sounds like there's a lot of world building involved in this game, right? Viewer, I am truly so glad you asked. Halo's story starts at the beginning. And I'm not talking about that bullshit Forerunner trilogy. Get that postmodern sci-fi out of here. I'm talking Eric Nyland, baby. Fall of Reach, First Strike, Ghosts of Onyx. The books that started the movement. Before this guy joined the effort, Master Chief was just a cyborg with a gun. Bungie had the infamous Halo story bible for Nyland to refer to, but aside from that loose set of rules, he had almost no help writing the first Halo novel because everyone at Bungie was going through crunch to finish the game on time. The result was the Fall of Reach, the novel that set up the events of the first Halo, Combat Evolved, which, by the way, he wrote in only 7 weeks. What does this holy text contain? Oh, just the origins of the one and only Master Chief Petty Officer Spartan 117. Or as he's known to his friends, John. Expanded universe time. Slap a big old spoiler warning on there for you. Here's the entire Halo story thus far. John Halo is a cyborg who kills aliens and doesn't afraid of anything. Wait, hang on. Wrong notes. 500 years in the future, humanity is an interstellar species that has expanded beyond our overcrowded sol system to colonize the hundreds of habitable planets around the neighboring stars. As colonies expand beyond the inner rim of systems accessible to Earth, they begin to grow weary of an Earth-centric government. Some rebel to form their own interstellar governments, but Earth don't like that. Earth decides to kidnap 75 out of 300 possible Spartans from the outer colonies and raise them into super soldiers for the express purpose of neutralizing anti-Earth insurrectionists from their own home planets, with the leader being John Spartan 117. Luckily, before too much of that abomination came to pass, the Covenant showed up. Oh, did I say luckily? The Covenant are a hyper-religious collective of alien species united under their belief in their gods, the Forerunners, and their Judgment Day, the Great Journey. They believe that humanity is an obstacle standing between them and the Great Journey. Because of their dependency and physical proximity to Forerunner artifacts, the Covenant have been able to make great leaps in technology without, earning it. Basically, you've got a technologically superior horde of space inquisitors, and every human's guilty. Wait, Forerunners? Collective? This game has more than one alien? Oh, sweet summer child. The Forerunners were the previous dominant alien species in the galaxy until 100,000 years ago when they suddenly vanished from existence. All they left behind was technology in the form of artifacts that the member species of the Covenant reverse-engineered to create their spaceships and plasma weaponry. These artifacts were absent, or hidden, from humans on Earth, so with nobody to copy answers off of, humanity had to make do with their pathetic nuclear power for their ventures into space. The Covenant makes first contact with humans, they pretty quickly declared all of humanity as heretics, holy wars ensue, atrocities are committed, days vault, yada yada. All this brings us back to the Master Chief and his 300 30 remaining Spartans that are still fighting the good fight against the Covenant, and definitely not other humans. Usually. Despite small victories, the Covenant continues to steamroll any human-controlled system that they find. The inequality between the two forces is never made more clear than the surprise attack on Reach, the headquarters for the Human United Nations Space Command, or UNSC. As Sun Tzu once said, if you cannot even defend your own capital from the enemy, ya fucked. While defending the doomed planet, humanity loses a majority of their remaining Spartans, and the large fleet defending the last bastion of resistance against the alien juggernaut. Nyland wasn't planning on starting an IP with a dozen games and 30 other novels, but he set up a universe that could accommodate them anyways. He walked so that Bungie could sprint.
Did you say sprint?
Calm down, I'm not there yet. And so, as the last known surviving Spartan of Reach, Master Chief is forced to flee with the infiltration AI Cortana aboard the UNSC Pillar of Autumn to an unknown destination in unexplored space. When they arrive at this destination, what do they find but Halo, an enormous ring world built by the Forerunners as a superweapon. Of course, the Covenant followed the Autumn, so Chief and Cortana team up to try and use Halo against them. Chief meets 343 Guilty Spark, the Forerunner AI monitor of Halo. Spark has been alone for 100,000 years, so he's not in the best shape mentally. But you wouldn't be either if you had millennia to contemplate if you too would end all life in the galaxy to stop an unspeakable evil. Wait, what? The Covenant, in their infinite wisdom, have investigated deeper inside the inner workings of the Halo, and whoopsie-daisy accidentally release a hyper-intelligent hive mind parasite bent on domination over life itself. This little oops is called the Flood. The reason that the Forerunners disappeared, the reason that the Halo superweapon was built, and the reason that the research labs containing Flood samples were buried like a mile underground. Little backstory on the Flood. They arrived in the Milky Way galaxy while the Forerunners ruled. They took over most Forerunner-controlled space, beating the technologically developed race back into the far corners of the galaxy without showing any signs of stopping. The Halo array was built as a last resort nuclear option, since after they were used nothing would be left. So let me reiterate, the Flood beat the Forerunners, the same Forerunners who built Dyson spheres, so badly that they had to use their last resort in order to pull off a stalemate. They weren't just your average zombie. They were intelligent, coordinated, highly specialized zombies. And the Flood came to the Milky Way on normal spaceships. If you consider how long it would take for something to travel from outside the galaxy without FTL drives, that means the Flood were spacefaring for hundreds of thousands of years at least before they came to the Milky Way. A caveat here, the Forerunner trilogy actually goes more in depth on the origins of the Flood, but as with all horror, the less you know, the scarier it is. So instead of learning about sick dogs, I highly recommend ignoring those explanations and just letting your mind wander. Think about it, an intelligent, extragalactic, parasitic hive mind whose goal is to build biomass and steal knowledge literally straight out of your brain. And who knows about galaxies beyond our own? Are the Flood a fluke that, by cosmic coincidence, ended up on our doorstep? Or have they already taken over every other galaxy, and the Milky Way is unknowingly the last bastion in a universe controlled by the Flood? The single light left alone in the dark. Perhaps no one will ever know. No one, except the Flood. Small anecdote here, please don't hate me, Greg Bear. You're a cultural icon, and I think that your work on the Forerunner trilogy is actually brilliant. I just disagree with 343's decision to explain every little detail when things were just fine the way they were. A little aside here.
Get on with it!
Alright, enough with the cosmic horror. Where is my first-person shooter? The Covenant have released the Flood. Master Chief has to fire Halo before the Flood escapes and restarts its campaign across the galaxy. But when he tries to activate Halo with Guilty Spark, Cortana stops them. Why? Because Spark never mentioned to Chief that Halo's actual purpose is to kill any creature with a nervous system within 3 radii of the galactic center, which is what the Flood eats. Which is what happened 100,000 years ago when the Forerunners and all intelligent life in the galaxy disappeared. Which, by the way, explains the real-life Fermi paradox. Chief and Cortana nope out of that awkward situation and elect to use the Pillar of Autumn self-destruct button to just blow up Halo itself instead. Boom. Problem solved. Humanity saved. Except a month later, the Covenant finds Earth. After decades of all-out war, humanity's homeworld has finally been discovered by the Covenant. Lucky for us, it's a small fleet commanded by an idiot that is quickly battered by Earth's beefy defenses until their flagship flees. A ship carrying the Chief called the In Amber Clad manages to follow the Covenant to their destination. This is the beginning of Halo 2, another Halo. There's some other stuff going on here that I'd love to explore, but this is the Chief's story, and you came here for Halo 3, so...
Yes! Get over there!
Chief infiltrates Halo again, but gets captured by the Gravemind, the Flood brain who's been fighting on this Halo since it first tried to escape 100,000 years ago. Big G tells Chief to stop the Covenant from firing the Halo since they both die if that happens. See? Flood Big Brain. GM teleports Chief to the Covenant Holy City, High Charity, where he shoots, punches, and stabs his way through to try and stop them. In the end, he arrives too late. The Covenant leader, the Prophet of Truth, has escaped. The Flood have invaded High Charity, and the only thing Chief can do to help humanity now is to stow away on the Covenant key ship leading the second assault on Earth, while Cortana stays behind to detonate in Amber-clad like the Pillar of Autumn if the Covenant managed to fire the Halo. However, she never gets the chance. The Arbiter, a Covenant commander turned suicide warrior turned separatist leader, has teamed up with humans on the Halo to stop the Covenant from starting their great journey. Together they succeed, only to be told that this Halo has primed the rest of the undiscovered rings in the galaxy for remote activation from the Ark.
And where, Oracle, is that?
And that's the end of Halo 2. The Flood is loose, the Halos are primed, Earth is under attack, and Cortana is missing. An end that went unresolved for 3 long years, until the release of the ultimate game in the trilogy. But was it worth the hype? Did Halo 3 live up to its name as the #1 best-selling game of the year? Short answer, you're goddamn right it did. But I don't have room to summarize it in this video and properly break down why it's so damn good. So, like everyone back in 2004, you're gonna have to wait on that cliffhanger, because...